Couldn't handle my pregnant stepmother's constant anger during lockdown, so I climbed out the window to escape. This happened in 2020, but it recently got brought up, so I thought I'd ask. So I, 17F, used to have a great relationship with my stepmother. I genuinely saw her as a mother figure in my life, and I was so excited when she found she was pregnant. But everything changed in 2020 when I had to stay prematurely with my dad during the lockdowns because my mom is a surgeon. At first everything was normal until my stepmother Tammy was about 4 months pregnant. She started snapping at me for no reason, and things that she didn't care about before now bothered her. Now I wasn't a messy or a loud person. I did every I was asked and respected the rules without any back talk. But no matter what I did, she got angry. It came to a point she couldn't stand being in the same room as me. I remember I ended staying in my room most of the time. I only left to do chores or get something from the kitchen. Even at that, she got mad. Like one day she came into my room angry and started yelling that my room was so smelly it was making her sick. I pointed out that the only mess in the room was a half bag of chips, which caused her to burst out crying. As always, Dad babied her, then made excuses saying she's struggling over lockdown, pregnancy, and not being able to see her family. My mental health was extremely bad. I felt like I was a piece of trash that at any day my dad was gonna throw away, and I was always scared my mom would get sick. It went so bad my hair started falling out. The breaking point came when I was at the kitchen table. I was reading a story on my phone waiting for my cereal to go soggy to eat it when Tammy came and huffed them, started cleaning loudly, complaining about a mess. The kitchen was spotless. Then she took my bowl and threw it in the bin, literally even the bowl. So I just flipped and started yelling at her what was her problem with me and called her an abusive fucking bitch among other things. My dad came running and got between us. She demanded that I leave the house, that I was never allowed near her kid. Dad walked me to my room, then said something that ruined our relationship forever. He told me that I must doing something to Tammy because no hates a kid for no reason, and if I kept stressing her I'd have to move out. I then made a social media post asking someone for a place to stay, explained the situation in detail, packed a bag, then climbed out my bedroom window bungalow. After about 30 minutes my phone started blowing up, but I just turned it off and went to a friend's house. I texted my mom off my friend's phone to let her know everything. She didn't call for 7 hours because she was in surgery. She said my aunt would pick me up the next day. My mom told my father I was okay and that I'd be staying with my aunt for 2 weeks till she could come home. Apparently Dad and Tammy had to go door to door to my family/friends' houses looking for me. After I made the post, let's say they got a lot of shit. My grandparents still don't talk to him to this day. My aunt packed up my room because I refused to go back into that house. I've not spoken to my father in years or met my half-brother. Tammy and Dad still try to fix our relationship. Apparently sometimes pregnant women get a hatred against people or pets for no reason. I'm turning 18 in 3 weeks, and a cousin's girlfriend asked me about inviting my dad, so I told her the story she told me. While what they did was wrong, what I did was an asshole thing too, because I made them worry/stress and go to multiple people's houses during a pandemic that put a pregnant woman having a mental health issue at risk by whole stunt. Update 1. I'm gonna call my cousin's girlfriend Sarah and my cousin Paul. So I mentioned in a comment I uninvited Sarah from the party. Yesterday Paul came over to talk. He told me Sarah had issues in the past with her younger siblings. It was apparently really bad. Like her siblings lived with their mom full time and she lived with her dad. Long story short, Sarah was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and collage and went to therapy. He said even though she's apologized, her siblings still won't have anything to do with her, which breaks her heart. Paul said Sarah told him that when I told her what happened it triggered her because it reminded her of her situation with her siblings. I didn't mention in the other post because it was really irrelevant to what I was asking, but Sarah texted me about letting go of the hate, links to sites about family members with mental health issues, numbers of family therapists, even subreddits on here. He told me Sarah wanted to meet up to clear the air and apologize in person. I said okay. Sarah texted about half an hour later about collecting me because she wanted to drive to a new restaurant that newly opened in the next town over as her pre-birthday treat to me. We know what she was planning, but Tammy ruined it for her by calling my mom to tell her Sarah's plans to help us make up. I wrote my dad a letter 2 days ago, as a lot of you suggested. I put everything in there and told him how it affects me to this day. I told him I wanted a relationship with my brother, but I wasn't sure I'll ever want one with him. I told him to leave me alone because his actions are only pushing me away even more, and if I ever decide I want to talk to him it will be on my terms with my mom present. The letter ended up being 5 pages, and you guys were right, it did make me feel better. My mom dropped it off that day and Dad asked to meet her a day later. They talked about me meeting my brother and my dad said he wants to buy me a car, no strings attached. They, Tammy and Dad, also asked would it be okay to give me money to get myself something for my birthday. You guys are gonna hate me for this, but I'm taking the car and $500 if he wants to give me more he can, because collage supplies and moving into a dorm is expensive. Back to Sarah. She's basically contacted Tammy via Facebook. Tammy sent my mom the screenshots, telling her everything I said, then asking Tammy her side because Sarah didn't believe me. To Tammy's credit, she told the truth and took full accountability. It was Sarah who kept trying to make out Tammy was the victim. Sarah told Tammy about her own past and said she'd try to mend our relationship. Tammy told her that didn't want her to. The last message was Sarah telling Tammy the location and time we'd be at the restaurant, even said she'd drive me so I couldn't leave even though I just asked a waitress for help or call my mom. My mom posted the screenshots into the group chat and called Sarah a bunch of names, told her if she ever came near me again she'd regret it. I blocked Sarah and left the group chat, so I don't know what happened afterwards, but Paul came over with my aunt and swore he knew nothing about it. To be honest, I don't know if I believe him because he was trying to defend Sarah again, which got him a verbal lashing from my aunt and mom. That's it really. I'm gonna update in a few months to let you guys know how everything went with my brother. I feel like I owe everyone that after so many people helped me take that step, because honestly words can't describe how happy it's made me. Literally the best birthday present I could have gotten. Thank you so much for the amazing advice and people sharing their own experiences, even the women who suffered mental illness. Tammy did. It helped me understand it a bit more, but I still can't forgive her. I don't think we can ever rebuild our relationship, especially to what it was. Update 2. I turned 18 3 days ago, had a great time. I've met my father. Sarah tried to get in contact with me again and I've spoken to my father and Tammy. It's easier to break everything down. Sarah, a day after I made the last update, my mom booked a holiday for a week to get away, which was really random and sudden for her. 3 days in, my mom got a notification that someone was at our door. It was Sarah. Sarah at first was normal, asking my mom to talk to me. Then she started explaining herself and her situation, which went between sad/angry, but suddenly she freaked out, started calling me names and threatening me while damaging our door and porch, even broke the Ring camera. It was extremely scary. I don't blame her siblings for not wanting anything to do with her. Sarah was arrested. My mom is definitely pressing charges. I don't know much about her situation now, but I'm not gonna lie, I've been looking over my shoulder a lot since. For those wondering, yeah, her and my cousin broke up. He's, let's say, shaken up worse than me and very apologetic. My brother, my birthday went great. I had such a good time. Honestly, I have the best mother/family in the world. They really made my 18th special. I got so many amazing presents, but my favorite was the sister necklace my brother gave me. Obviously Dad or Tammy got it, but I finally get to be his sister and that's what I've wanted for so long. We have spent some time together and I'm seeing him again tomorrow. He's so extremely adventurous, never sits down for a second. He loves Miss Rachel and Green. I found out he and the neighbor's cat will stare each down, which I used to do when I stayed at Dad's. I could talk for hours about him. I'm so glad you guys helped me meet him. I can't thank you enough for that, Dad. My dad was there the first time I met my brother. I knew beforehand, because obviously my brother is a toddler. Basically we met at Dad's sibling aunt's house. I was told he'd stay in the kitchen the whole time. I caught him peeking at me and brother a few times throughout the day. When I was leaving, my dad followed me out and just hugged me. He told me he missed me. I hugged him back and told him I missed him too. As you know, it was the first time I've spoken to him in years. He apologized and took accountability. I started angry, crying, then just left everything out. I told him how they made me feel, my mental LTH, and that I love him but I'll never forgive him. He asked me if he could try to make it up to me and be a part of my life again. I said we can try, but I'm making no promises on ever getting back the relationship we once had. We have spoken a few times and he has helped me when I needed to bring my large dog home from the vets. Now Tammy, you guys are gonna be shocked, but I was the one who contacted her, so I got my mom to call her to basically say Jessica is with me, she wants to speak to you. Tammy was obviously shocked but agreed. I told her after everything she put me though and how much she hurt me that we'd never have a relationship, but I'm willingly, for just my brother's sake, not hers or mine, to be civil, because I want us to be able to attend my brother's events without drama. Tammy started apologizing and telling me she's not like that anymore. She got help, which I'm glad she's doing better. We talked about the Sarah situation and my brother for a few minutes. The whole call was like 20 minutes. I've not spoken to her since, but like that 5 days ago, so that's it really. My last update date. I know what people are thinking about my dad. I've not forgiven him and he will have to work extremely hard to get back the relationship we lost, but I feel better that he's back in my life and I do believe both of them regret it. But if I get any shit or think my brother isn't being treated well, I will make their lives hell. Now on to second story. Wife and I found ourselves becoming pseudo-parents to an 18-year-old from our church, and now his filthy living situation is destroying us. 6 months ago, a family in my wife's, 30F, and my, 30 male, church was leaving the state. Their son, 18M, who we will call Fred, was very against the change and pushed against his family's decision to leave. I have been a mentor to this kid since he was 16. His family left anyway and, believing that 18-year-olds are adults, left him without the resources to support himself. My wife and I live in a larger house, nearly 4,000 square feet, in a major metropolitan city, where we had already put together an incredible suite for guests. The room includes a bathroom, TV area, furnishings, and a kitchenette. Naturally, we offered this room to Fred. We drafted up a lease for the room with common areas being the home gym, theater, kitchen, dining room, everywhere but our bedroom and offices. Out of principle, I wanted him to pay something for rent, but knew he couldn't afford the typical one-bedroom rents in the area, $1,800 plus, so rent was set at $200. Fred works 1 day a week at a local grocery store and pays rent relatively on time. One time he was 2 months late. Due to his situation, we have become like pseudo-parents to him. Teaching him how to use a lawnmower, teaching him how to cook for himself, teaching him how to fix his car, and helping him with his resume, to name a few. He is using this period to find himself and is constantly asking for our life advice. We enjoy helping him out. About 3 months in, I notice ants near his door and, in the process of terminating the ants, I notice his room is incredibly dirty, food and garbage everywhere. I remind him of a clause in the lease where wastage is forbidden and, after threats of eviction were brought up, I helped him clean his room, with me doing the vast majority of the work. 2 days ago, he left his door open. I could smell spoiling food from the other side of the house. I try to locate the source and am shocked by the state he lives in. Food everywhere, with most of the boxes containing half of their original contents. Many of these takeout items purchased weeks prior. Now here's the rub, I am legally his landlord, but I am playing the role of an uncle or adopted father or something. If I evict, he is homeless as he can't afford anything here. This appears to be a mental health issue. He doesn't apply himself to get a better job, works 1 day a week, no girlfriend/boyfriend, and lives in squalor I have only seen in our /neckbeard nests. I want him to be happy and healthy, but I also don't want my house to be in jeopardy of a pest infestation, horrific smells, and other damage. How can I approach him and resolve this issue? Update 1. After I posted, I took Fred to a local fair, Earth Day, where we could get junk food and watch some remote control boat racing, look at some plants, and talk. I sat him down and discussed that there needs to be significant changes. I explained that he was damaging my property and it was hurting me emotionally to watch him suffer in clutter and filth. I told him that, within the next 2 weeks, he needs to seek out a therapist to talk to. Due to his perceived paranoia about his mom and dad learning what he tells the therapist, I explained to him that the therapist would not legally be able to discuss anything with me, his parents, or anyone on earth. Furthermore, I told him that he does this, I would be willing to completely waive rent. Fred agreed to seek therapy. 3 days later, he got into a car crash while texting and driving. Luckily, no one was hurt. Fred's car, however, was not as fortunate. Initially, I thought this may be good for him. He was working 1 day per week at a large chain grocery store that was located 1.5 hours away from the house. Fred showed zero initiative to transfer stores, so I thought this would force him to get a local job. I also thought that, without the car, he can focus on himself. This thesis would be proven to be incorrect. 3 weeks pass and the situation has gotten far worse. He doesn't leave his room, he hasn't gotten a therapist, no job, and he has stopped bathing. He only leaves the house to pick up fast food, where he will sit in the store for hours, simply watching people. There was a noticeable smell beginning to emanate from that wing of the house. To address this with him and further assess what I can do for him, I invite him out to lunch. As we get into my car to drive to lunch, Fred informs me that he has to go clean out his totaled vehicle within the next 2 hours or they are sending it to the scrap yard. I learned that the shop has been threatening this for the past week, but Fred didn't think that the repair shop was serious and stopped taking their calls. We change course, get to the repair shop, and I drop him off near his car to let him gather his belongings. I spend about 30 minutes looking at the new car offerings, text him to see if he needs help. No, I'm almost done. I walk back to my car, watch a documentary for another half hour, and text him again, almost done. I turn on another YouTube documentary, it concludes, and I text him again, you can pull around so we can load the trunk. I pull into the repair parking lot and do not immediately see him by his car. I park only to find a group of mechanics talking with each other. I asked to see if they had seen Fred, they pointed over to the curb where their Fred was, in a fetal position, sobbing hysterically. Fred asked if he was okay, thinking he was hurt, no response. I asked Fred if he needed help, he asked me to move his belongings from his car to mine. What I found in his car was shocking. Food debris, half-eaten chicken nuggets, drinks, burgers, and other fast food items piled in his car to an extent that showed me exactly how severe the situation inside of his head is. The food was piled from floor to the seats in the passenger seat and the rear seats, SUV. The mess continued into the trunk. The smell is what I image hell to be. Remember, these food items, most of which are months old, have now been baking in a car under the May Florida sun. I dug through the filth to find his belongings, clothes, a toolbox, anime porn, and the like. He was still in hysterics. After gathering what I could find, I asked him to double-check my work. He then approached the front of the car and took off one of the windshield wipers to remember the car. Fred then asked me to get him his socket wrench set so that he could take the spare tire. I put my foot down explaining that the spare probably won't fit his next car and that I would not allow a tire to be stored in my house. He sobbed more. I called my wife so that she could confirm I wasn't being an asshole, which she did, and I told him it was time to leave. We left and went to lunch in silence after the 4-hour ordeal. After picking up food and returning home, I sat Fred down and explained that he isn't healthy. He hasn't found a job, he hasn't sought out therapy as he agreed to, even after I found a therapist for him and sent him the intake forms 2 weeks prior, and that I suspected his room was in the same disarray as his car. He denied this. I notified him that I would be inspecting his room in 48 hours per the lease. What I found in Fred's room was horrifying. It was, as I suspected, trashed. Food containers piled up over his bed, a small path so he could get to the door. I told him he has a week to clean it up as well as drafted up a formal notice of the situation. Fred did not clean his room within the week and I informed him that I would be reaching out to his parents and evicting him if he did not move out by the end of the month, May. He cried in response. His parents were shocked. I put quotes around this because I failed to believe they were not aware of his mental health and tendencies prior to leaving Fred to live here, especially when the issues are so substantial. As his father was coming down, Fred ran away. He took an Uber, and was missing for 24 hours. Fred eventually came home, 2 hours prior to his father's arrival and, as anticipated, his room was barely packed, so his father and I cleaned out his room. As it turns out, I was only seeing about half of the debris in his room. His dresser, nightstand, under the bed, the closet, all were packed with food. I will never eat Popeye's chicken ever again. The 4-month-old barely consumed chicken bucket in the dresser is too much of an experience for me to handle. There were 2 liters bottles of urine. My wife had purchased Vera Bradley towels for the bathroom he was using. I didn't have the heart to tell her that a few were just thrown away as they were covered in biological waste. The carpet, new to the room, crunched under the feet and was covered in pizza toppings, sauce, and similar drippings. His father cried through the process. I puked twice. Fred frantically packed his belongings, including had a secretive box he didn't want us to touch or lift to the van, a mystery I will never know the answer to. Eviction was successful. I offered to pay for his college if Fred begins therapy. His parents kicked him out soon after he returned home and he is living alone in a trailer in the rural Ohio woods that his parents bought for him. College started a few weeks ago. I didn't have to pay as he still has not attended therapy. We have since cleaned up the room, replaced the bed and much of the furniture. The carpet had to be specially treated and probably would have been better if replaced entirely. Thousands of dollars, emotional trauma, lots of learning, and an absolute repulsion to fast food are my takeaways. He doesn't respond to my texts and, I can only assume, that I am now a bad guy in his life story. I really wish him the best and my heart breaks for him when I think about the situation. Early this month we received a misaddressed Amazon package for him, a massive package of sauce concentrate for restaurants.